Hi guys, I'm just going to do a yabo, but before I do that, I'm smoking my estate Peterson that I got at a junk shop, and in it I've got some McBaron Classic Flake. I don't often smoke McBaron or Gareth and Hogarth because I find them a little wet and sometimes quite difficult to smoke. But since I've been packing my pipe in a different way, in the free-form way, or in the no sort of form way, as one person has the situation. In other words, not doing the baby's finger, the adult's finger, the three way of packing and packing it down and filling and packing it down. The other thing I'm using that's very helpful with all kinds of tobacco is the Nording volcanic stones. They're sort of quite little volcanic flakes and stones, and you put 5 of them, 10 of them in the bottom of your pipe. It lifts the tobacco, the stones lift the tobacco off the bottom of the pipe, so you always smoke right down to the bottom without any wastage. It soaks up any wetness in the tobacco as you're smoking, and it keeps the airway open, so it makes it a lot easier to smoke. Now to the yabo. The yabo's from my son. He's always generous to his dad. And if you saw his cellar, I think I've got a lot more to, get little bits of. I must go down and visit. But the first thing that he sent me, and that's his Oriental Dream mixture, which I'm just about out of, and it is a very nice mixture. He's got something there that I like. It's an Oriental mixture, obviously from the title, but I think it's worthy of a commercial mixture. I'm sorry about the dogs. They're on the bed we live in a bungalow, and they're on my wife's bed because we have separate beds because of her disability. And from the bed, they can guard the street, which basically means anything that moves in the street, they'll bark at. So I'm sorry about that. Another thing that the Wharfdale boy sent me, the Wharf Valley boy, is Peterson's Sherlock Holmes. I haven't smoked that yet or had a taste of it, but it smells very nice, and he's very generously sent me 1.5 ounces of that. He also sent me some Irish Oak, which again is Peterson's, and I haven't had any of that before. So I'm looking forward to that. I've had a good sniff, and it seems that might be a very nice smoking mixture. He also sent me some Sam Gareth cabbies mixture. It's one that I've often seen and often thought about trying, but I've never got round to yet. So I'll see what that's like, and if I like it, then I'll buy some supplies myself. And finally, just to make you all jealous, aged Penzance. It's got a lot of age on it. I asked him to send me, he was going to send me a tin, and I said, no, look, send me a sample, just so that if I like it, then maybe you can send me some more. But if I don't like it, it saves me then having to send the tin back to you. You might be horrified by that, because I know a lot of you in the States love it, and I know it's very difficult to get. It's just impossible in this country. But Tim had somebody who got him some and sold him some. Sometimes I think certain blends are built up and we like them either because of their rarity or because everybody else likes it. And I'm bloody minded enough to say, no, I'm not going to do that. One of the things that surprised me this week is that I got an email from the Bulldog Piper. I don't know whether he still reads the emails or whether he's gone completely, but his email was to say that I'd won his giveaway. I went onto the site to try and contact him again and noticed that he only has 8 followers and that everything's been taken down. I know there's been trouble in the group. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know 1 or 2 people have been involved. And I don't want to say any more than that. But what I do want to do is share with you something that I learnt very early in my ministry. My first parish was quite difficult, and there were a lot of problems, some of them caused by the vicar, and some by my inexperience. But I had a gentleman whose wife died. And he really suffered in the bereavement. And I visited him as often as I could. But he got more and more demanding of my visits. And eventually said, if you don't visit more, I'll commit suicide. Well, you can guess what happened. One week I had 2 or 3 funerals to do and some baptism visits and the regular work of a clergyman. And he committed suicide because I hadn't visited. Left a note saying to that effect that that was part of why he committed suicide, and the other that he'd lost his wife and found it very difficult to cope. And I was quite upset. I felt very guilty that I should have gone round more. But I went to visit an old priest, and a very wise man. In many ways a very worldly man, a very holy man as well. I don't think he'd taken a day off in 20 years. And one day when he was talking to his curates and as a training priest, he said, you must make sure you take a day off each week. And his wife, who was passing, said, huh. And the curates looked and he said, oh, ask yourselves. And she said he hadn't taken a day off in more years than she could remember. But he said to me, he said, Stephen, you are not to blame for someone committing suicide, however lackadaisical you were in your visiting. And for a start, no one should blackmail someone else in that way. And in many ways, you've got to give people permission to commit suicide. So if they want to do it, they're going to do it, whether you're there or not. And I realised that there was a lot of truth in that. If people are going to leave a group for whatever reason, we've got to give them permission to do it. It's up to them. I just hope as a group we'll always be forgiving and welcoming. We'll always understand that we're part of frail humanity, or at least I hope you understand that I'm part of frail humanity. And sometimes we do things that we regret. Sometimes pride comes into it, sometimes just bloody-mindedness. And in my ministry there was nobody more bloody-minded than me. If I felt a bishop was being unfair, I would make an appointment and I would go to see him and I'd tell him what I thought. But one of the bishops said to me after we'd had a big blow-up and things had eventually calmed down, both in the diocese and in the lives of the people involved. He took me to one side and he said, "Stephen, you came and you told me what you thought. And he said, you told me what you thought in no uncertain terms." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way I am." And he said, "That doesn't bother me." He said, "You're honest." And he said, "What really I felt that I had to say to you was thank you. Thank you for not going outside that room and telling anybody else what you thought of me." He said, "You told me, and that was it." And that was another important lesson I learned. The temptation sometimes is to jump on a bandwagon when we don't know what the hell's going on. I'm going to stop there because I realise that having been an ex-priest, well, I'm still officially ordained, but having given up my ministry, I still tend to preach. And I hate people who preach. But I want to end with a joke. There were two friends. One was married, one wasn't. And the married friend invited his other friend round for a meal. And during the meal, he would say things to his wife like, "Thank you very much, darling. Sweetheart, could you just, my love, that was a lovely meal." And it went on all through the meal. And eventually the wife said, "Would anybody like coffee?" And he said, "Darling, I'd love a coffee. And I'm sure you'll make a lovely coffee." And as she went out into the kitchen, his friend said, "All through the meal you've complimented your wife with little terms of endearment." And he said, "I'm really, really, I think it's wonderful that you've done so, that you could do so after being married all these years." And his friend looked at him and leaned across the table and said quietly, "Well, if I'm honest. I forgot what her name was 10 years ago.